can, I would really appreciate the having your video on so I can see your reactions um, to make sure that you don't fall asleep while I'm talking. Okay. One thing I wanted to do was talk about the class. The other thing I wanted to do was to demonstrate how to make the sketchbook. All right, we have, it looks like Jessica Johnson. Each week we're going to have a different project. Each project is going to be different. And that's a lot of using different a lot in just a couple sentences. But each one is going to reflect a different aspect of the art process. And it may be that one of the weeks, all we do for the project is read a bunch of things and talk about it. You know, it's not always going to be making something. But I did want this first week, I wanted to turn you all into bookbinders, have you guys make a couple things. You're going to be making 5. Let's see. We're going to be making 5 sketchbooks. And that's what you're going to be used through the term. Everybody's going to be doing 35 entries total, which is a little bit less than 3 a week. And about 2/3 of those are going to be visual scribbles. And about 1/3 of those could be notes, you know, if you want to take notes for different things. And I just wanted to show this to you really quick. This is one of my sketchbooks. I am a bookbinder, but I did not bind this. I'll just show you. Like this is one of the entries that I made where it has just some sketches where I'm trying to work out ideas. And you can see there's a lot of writing. And then this is another one. So my sketchbooks vary quite a bit. Sometimes there's a lot of sketching in it, and sometimes there's a lot of writing. But everybody will be responsible for 3 different entries, or an average of about 3 entries a week. And I say that because if you do a couple entries and then over Thanksgiving break, you're bored out of your skull and do the rest of them, then that's not going to hurt my feelings. You know, as long as you do them, as you set them down and just make separate entries, that'll be fine. And you'll get a module in a couple days or early next week that describes that a little bit more. But we are going to make 5 different sketchbooks. I want to show you a couple of them. This is kind of what they look like. And when you do your photos to submit this assignment, you're going to have them fanned out like this so that you can show the different things that you've done. So I'm going to demonstrate how to do that, and then we will talk about the course a bit. What I have is a piece of heavier paper, and you can use a bunch of different things. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Does anybody remember about how many pages I was telling you to do for each sketchbook? Anybody remember? I said 5 to 10. So that's what 5 pages looks like, is all. And you can do more. You can do like 15 or 20 if you wanted to. So for this first one, we're going to do 10 pages inside, okay? And I'll show you how to do that. The process is we're going to fold these. We're going to punch holes in them. We're going to ram a rubber band through the holes, and then we're going to use a spine to stabilize it. We got rubber bands like this that can stretch quite a bit. And the spine, I recommended chopsticks. You can use a chopstick. So that's what we're going to make. And then I'll do a second one that shows lots of different types of things that we can do. Now, what I've also got to help me make the crease on the spine is a comically oversized spoon. And you can use a regular size spoon. I just found that. Oh, and I picked this up in the road, so we can use this to burn it. This was literally in the middle of the road. The scissors were open. I had to pick it up because I just figured somebody like my grandma would drive over it and puncture their tire, and I'd feel terrible. But we can use this to burnish it down too. And I'll show you that process really quick. So I've got 2 sets of paper here. Both of these have 5 pages in them. I'm going to change the angle of this really quick so you can see what I'm doing. All right. We're going to fold this, rub it down with my hand, and then because I don't want the paper discolored, I'm going to put a paper towel over it and use my spoon to make that crease quite a bit sharper. Okay. Now, this I also wanted to be doing with my cover paper. So I'm going to put my cover paper in there. Tap them all so they're lined up. Line up the corners. And burnish that as well. All right. Now I've got my hole punch. Oh, I'm going to move this again now. There we go. I've got my hole punch. I'm going to line this up and punch a hole as far as I can reach in right on that crease. All right, can everybody see that? We've got the holes as far in as I can reach on either side. So that's one part of it. Then I've got this part that I just folded first. We're going to do the same thing. Now in bookbinding, every time you have pages that you're folding together, it's called a signature. But I'm combining those 2 signatures into one signature. And this is what it looks like right now with those holes in the spine. See that? Okay, it looks like we have a couple more people that joined. Let's see. If I didn't already get your name, who are the 2 additional people that joined? One initial KB and one the initial.
Casey. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Casey.
Bree! I'm Bree.
Bree?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then Casey. Is your last name Buga?
Bugis.
Bugas? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so you see where I'm at right now? I've got the holes punched on the spine. Now what I'm going to do is grab my large rubber, this is a pretty big size rubber band. I'm going to punch it through one of those holes, one of those sets of holes. I'm going to take my chopstick, put it through that. Can everybody see that? Pull on that rubber band just a little bit. Then on the other side, I'm going to put the rubber band through the hole from the inside of my sketchbook and put the chopstick through that little end of the rubber band. So did everybody see that? And I've made a sketchbook. See that? Now the reason why I want you guys to make 5 of these is because there's lots of different kinds of things that you can do. And I will demonstrate 2 more options. I found this cool piece of paper at a craft store. And I'm going to just use like, I'll use 7 sheets of paper. What other kind of paper could you do for the cover? This I'm using because it's a little bit heavier weight. Do any of you guys shop at like Harmon's or Smith's? Okay, you can use a one of the paper bags that they have. Cut out a side of the paper bag so it's about 8.5 by 11, like the sheets of paper that you're using, and then you can use that as your cover. What other kinds of things could you use?
Poster board.
Poster board would be really good. Excellent. Would you do anything on the poster board or just leave it that color?
Up to you.
Yeah, you could do whatever you wanted. I'm thinking you could probably also, if you have, you know, those old folders that you used in high school and stuff like that, you could probably take one of those, rip off the flap, trim it down to 8.5 by 11, and use that as a cover. So I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to fold it. You could also just get a piece of tag board, and they maybe put, I don't know, photos that you print out on it. Glue those down. You could get a sponge. Like I have a bag of cool texture sponges. You can make some really strong coffee, or you could mix like a packet of Kool-Aid with maybe a 1/4 cup of water. So it looks almost like paste, but that's a really strong color. And you could use the sponge to apply the color onto your cover paper. That would be an interesting thing. You could collect leaves and glue leaves on the cover, or feathers, or whatever you wanted to find. You could put that on. You could do a lot of kinds of things with the cover. So I folded this together. I'm gonna punch the holes in. Okay, so I've got those 2 holes, but I want to do something a little bit different with this one. So on the spine, I'm going to just kind of get it tight down there. I'm going to punch another couple holes. And these I'm just going to go in about halfway. It looks like the paper is going to be a little bit thick, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can punch those holes, taking some of the paper out. It still doesn't want to work. Okay, so I've punched a couple holes there. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Same thing with this one. Oh, I don't know where. Okay, let's see. Set that up. See if I can mark that. Okay. This will make sense to you in just a second. All right. So I've got holes punched in each thing, but now I'm going to use, I have a paintbrush, and I'm going to take some smaller rubber bands. I'm going to poke through two of them through this second hole. Put my paintbrush through there. And then one of these rubber bands, I'm going to put through that bottom hole. There we go. Okay, let's see if we can get this to work. I haven't done this before, so I don't know if it'll work, but I'm hoping it does. I'm going to slide this brush down a bit. And this, so I have one rubber band at the bottom right there. I'm going to take this second rubber band that I have over that brush right there. Going to pull it through this hole. Loop that around the brush. And then my third rubber band, I'm going to put through that same hole. Loop around that brush. I'm going to kind of work the brush back up to the top. Okay. And I'm going to take that last rubber band, loop it through the top hole. And put that around the brush too. Nice. I'll probably spend a little bit of time straightening out the rubber band so it looks a little bit nicer, but then now I've got a little bit fancier binding. But it's the same kind of thing. See that with the rubber bands going through the holes and around that brush to keep the to make the spine. Can everybody see that? So I have used a chopstick, like I mentioned, and I've used this happens to be a Japanese style ink brush. What other kinds of things could you use?
A pencil.
Excellent. I was just going to say that. What's this?
Chopstick.
Well, we did a chopstick over here. This is a shish kebab skewer.
A skewer.
Yes. What else? Do any of you ever go on hikes or walks?
A stick.
Excellent. It doesn't even have to be completely straight. All it has to do is be straight enough to the spine so that you can put your rubber band through and have your rubber band held in place. What else could you do? Do any of you do any knitting?
Could you use a crochet hook?
Yeah, crochet hook would be great. What else?
Pencil.
A pen.
A pen. The only restriction is it needs to be long enough to for your rubber band to go through those holes and attach to it.
Straw.
A straw. I don't know if a straw would be strong enough, but you could definitely put something in the straw to make it stronger. Now, But what if you had golf pencils, really short ones? You could definitely do that. You just punch those little holes in the spine, like for this one, put one pencil right here with a small rubber band, and put a golf pencil right there with a small rubber band. So you could definitely do that. Any other ideas?
No.
I bet you could come up with more. What kinds of stuff could you do for the covers? Have you guys been to Michael's or Joann's? Okay, they have papers like this out the wazoo. So you could find stuff like this. What else could you do? What if you got an oversized card for something? Like a birthday card or something like that. If the card is 8.5 by 11 or bigger when you fold it out, when you open it up, you could open it up, trim it down so that the spine is right in the middle, and use that. It doesn't even have to be square. It can be smaller. As long as the card is about this high in the center, and even if it had like something fancy on one side of it, or a cutout, or I don't know, when I was in my 20s, my grandma would send me cards. She thought I was perpetually 5 years old. And so my cards, that when I was like 25, one of my birthday cards had a little Pat the Feather kind of thing on it. You could do something like that for your cover. What about the insides? What kind of other stuff could you do on the insides? I just use regular white paper. What else could you do?
Colorful paper.
Yeah, you go to Walmart and get the color. They have colored printer paper. You could do that. Or if you have leftover tea or Kool-Aid, you could even paint the paper with that or splash it with that and put some color on it that way. But for this assignment, everybody needs to make 5 of these. And did you see how incredibly long and arduous it took me to make 2? It was grueling, wasn't it? What you could do
So
is,
grueling.
yes, very grueling. What you could do is probably spend maybe an hour making these, maybe spend a little bit more time putting the materials together. But each of the 5 needs to be different. They can't be identical. You can use, like if you got bored with the regular color of chopsticks, you could dip them in Kool-Aid and stain them that way. Or you could use, like we talked about, sticks, skewers, pencils, colored pencils, paintbrushes, lots of different kinds of things like that. One of you said crochet needle. That was just right. So I would like you to just to think about the different kinds of things you could do and try to make each one a little bit different or a lot different. All right. Throughout the semester, you will be responsible for making 35 entries into one of your sketchbooks. And those 35 entries, 24 of them need to have some sort of visual element. Did I already show you my sketchbook? I'll have visual elements in my sketchbook like this. Some of them will be notes about different projects I want to work on. And you could do both. But 2/3 of your entries should need to be visual. And we'll talk more about that next week too. Has everybody been able to get onto that archive.net website I sent you?
Yes.
Okay. I don't expect you to read all of the Sundiata thing, but I do need everybody to watch the video where the one person is reading the book because I want you to know the story. And we're going to use that to kind of inform what we do for our final class exhibition, where all of us are going to be making an example of artwork that looks like it could fit into that era. And do you remember the example I gave of making a cell phone case? The cell phone case, I was thinking, we're talking 12th century, so most likely they did not have cell phones. But you could make yourself get a base for your cell phone case at like the Dollar Tree. Maybe paint it so it looks kind of like wood. And maybe put some decorations on it, patterns on it, so it kind of looks like the veining of a baobab tree leaf or something. You could do different things like that that feel like it might belong there. One of the most famous examples of architecture in the world is the Old Mali Mosque. And you'll see a picture of that later on. That is all mud daubed architecture. Think Pueblo, but like three or 4 or 5 stories tall. And it is very specific to Mali, but you can use those kind of shapes to inform you. And we'll talk about more about that later. So does anybody have any questions about what they've seen and read in the class so far? All right, another question I have is this late on Tuesday night okay? Is it going to work? Or should we do this at 7:30 tomorrow, Wednesday night?
During the season, volleyball players travel on Wednesdays, so Tuesdays are probably better.
Okay. Does everybody concur with that?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes, that works.
Okay. Most of these, I don't really want to go much past 45 minutes. I have an hour scheduled, but this is mostly for so that you can see a demonstration of what the kind of project we're working on. And so you have an opportunity to ask any questions. And then, of course, it will also be, the recording will be posted as well, and I'll send everybody a link. Now, how attendance will work is everybody will be responsible for the video of that week. And if there are 6 people attending, and I've written down 6 names. So you guys are fine. But if you miss one, then you'll just have to watch the recording and you'll tell me 3 things about it. And I think the way I'll do that is I'll set up like a separate module that will be labeled attendance. And in that, there will be an entry for each week. And you'll just be responsible for each of those weeks for doing that video. Now, if you're really busy and you're not able to watch a video one week, and then a couple weeks later, you're able to watch a bunch of them, that's fine. I don't really care as long as you get that information. I would like you as much as possible to get a hold of that information as early on in each week as you can. That's why we're doing these on Tuesdays. So you have that. If there were only 2 people attending, like at the very beginning of this, we would have switched it to Wednesdays. But since there's more people than that, and the majority of you said Tuesday is great, then that's what we'll stay with, okay? And as we go on, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, let me know. I am trying to make sure that the materials for this are things that you can get relatively easily. And I want to make sure as much as possible we recycle or use stuff that you already have. So when we do potato stamp printing, we're going to make ink with Kool-Aid and Elmer's glue. You're not going to be able to eat it afterwards, which I hope doesn't disappoint you. But we're going to be making our own paint to paint with. You may have to buy a brush, but I'm also going to have you make a brush out of like a stick. And we're just going to do different things like that. I may even have you make your own pen if we can get out of a straw, if we can get a hold of that. I think that's something that everybody could do. And if you guys are interested later on in the term, we will also revisit this whole book thing and maybe make a second book if you're interested, or a second type of book. But again, for these sketchbooks, I want you to be creative. I don't want any two to be the same, and you'll be responsible for making 5. And when you put the photo, submit the photo, you can have all of the books you made like this in the photo, okay? When you take pictures of your projects, if you have like a white sheet or white tabletop to set them on to take photos of, that is a lot more successful. All right. So does anybody have, last call for questions? Anybody have any more questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Okay.
If we're a part of an athletic team, do you want us to still give you the form stating that we're missing, or does that not matter?
The form stating that you're missing what?
Missing classes, even though this is an online class, does that not matter?
I wasn't aware of that form.
Oh,
no, okay, no, that's only for in-person classes. I'm sorry, I know what you're talking about. Since attendance is either attending the video or watching it at a later date and telling me about it, that form does not matter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, if you want to take a trip to the moon or whatever, that is totally fine with me. All right, any other questions? All right, I think we're good. Now, I did want to mention one more thing. We are going to have, I'm going to try to keep this to about 9 hours of activity each week. And what I've seen, though, is A students consistently will do more than that. And I don't really keep track of that time. You keep track of that time on your work log. So just be mindful of that. Of course, if you spend 3 hours a week on this class, what kind of grade do you think you'd get? C is closer to be 7 to 9 is going to be C level. If you do 3 hours a week, that's not going to be quite as good. All right. And if you focus, you can get an A with 9 hours if you are really concentrating and work on your craftsmanship. This class is not for you to make portfolio worthy work. It is not for you to make masterpieces. It is, all of you know how to do good quality work and follow directions. And I would look at things and maybe even see what other people have done online and consider being really creative with the different options. But again, I don't expect you guys are not taking this class to show off your master level skills. So I don't expect that. Not at all. But for something like this, if you take a picture of this and these holes are punched all over the place and the whole sketchbook is folded over and one of the rubber bands isn't even making it over the chopstick, and it just looks terrible. None of the pages, all the pages are skewed. What kind of a grade do you think that would be? Not a very good one, huh? But when you follow directions and make sure everything is nicely creased and you have it looped up so it looks good, that's quite a bit better. And if you show a variation of different kinds of materials for the project, that's even better. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So yeah, I don't want you, I did have a student who spent 25 hours a week on this class, and I think that is ridiculously absurd. If you guys do that, I will recommend you talk to one of your counselors, probably a psychologist. But if you really want, if that's what you're into, I just think that's way too much time, because this is a 10-10. All right. But if you guys have any other questions that you don't think about right now, you think about later, go ahead and email me and I will try to answer all those later on. One thing I am noticing is that I have gotten several questions that were in the emails that were sent or that are in the each of the modules and the written parts. So before asking questions about each module, please will you go through the module and read everything you can first and then see if the questions are answered there. Okay. And I tried to make sure that all of the material that you have to be responsible for, like reading or watching, is free access to. Okay. I don't want you to have to spend a lot of money on this. Okay. If there's not any more questions, then I think that's pretty good. And I will talk to you all next week.
Thank you.
Alrighty?
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
You too.